we're kind of going to hold it as a floater in hopes that some people are going to come to speak to us, and we'll get to it as we get to it. And they just walked in the door. I'm talking to my mic, Anthony. Is there a problem? Wait a minute. There we go.
It is, okay.
I'm sorry. Everybody else is light green?
Please check your mics and make sure they're all, they should all be on.
I didn't even notice. I'm sorry.
Oh, that, all right. Okay.
Anthony, you can get me later. I'll stop and see you.
If you're ready to go with this item,
We will.
Randy Marshall. Randy Marshall is here to present the botanical garden concepts that have been developed, and I'll turn it over to him.
I would like to start by saying thanks to Carl and to this board for allowing us to speak to y'all today. My name is Randy Marshall. I'm here representing a ad hoc committee of the San Angelo Garden Club. We believe that a beautiful botanical garden can enhance and protect the International Water Lily collection and make it in San Angelo more enticing to visitors. So we'd like to kind of show you the progress we've made on this and some of the concepts that have been developed. So today I'll show you where we are in the process, introduce you to the landscape architect group that we've chosen to guide us through the project, and show you their initial ideas for this garden, take a look at our next steps for the future. First of all, let me talk about our committee. I would like to say it's a privilege to be involved with a group this intelligent and motivated. Our committee chairperson is Susie Marshall, with co-chair Larry Jolly. Our treasurer is Irene Meitzen of the San Angelo Garden Club. Our secretary is Tracy Hedges. We are 19 members strong right now, including horticulturalists John Begno, Allison Watkins, of course Ken Landon and his International Water Lily collection. We have an accountant, we have lawyers, very experienced grant writers. We have many master gardeners, part of our group, several business owners and teachers, as well as lifelong and new members or new residents in San Angelo. And of course, we'll be relying on your board and Carl and Roger Havlick for assistance as we move forward. Kind of the steps that we've looked at in obtaining our goals. Our committee was formed with the initial goal of surrounding, protecting, and enhancing the International Water Lily collection as the experience of the water lily collection. That collection was developed, built and fostered by Ken Landon with a lot of help from Carl and others during the years. So we were formed with that idea in mind, to surround it and protect it. After our first very successful fundraiser, we were able to research landscape architects, interview our choices, make our selection, and obtain the presentation that we have before you. So this is kind of where we are today. We have the initial concepts. Our next step is to incorporate our organization and obtain 501(c) designation. When this is complete, we'll be looking to lease the Civic League Park, finalize our master plan for the garden, and begin construction, looking forward to opening to the public. Mesa Design Group that we've chosen as our architects for this project, I could probably speak for an hour on their accomplishments. But I will simply say it's an outstanding group with an incredible references and a beautiful portfolio. Please take the time to go online and look at their website and take a look at what they've accomplished. And I think you'll see the reason why we chose that group. They are awesome at what they do, and I believe Carl is familiar with them and some of the projects that they've completed. Mesa's view on this park and also our view on this park is kind of a gateway to the river corridor in the downtown area when you're entering the city from the west. They're calling it a beautiful jewel on the Concho with landscaping and architecture to tie it to the Riverwalk, to the visitor center, and also to the museum with the same styling and architecture. They have provided 3 conceptual drawings. All 3 of the drawings include some of the same features. The features are important to the success of a botanical garden. The International Water Lily Collection and the Rose Garden are existing features of Civic League Park, and they bring a lot of people to that park. Other features that are common to all 3 of their drawings would be an entrance building. It would provide several methods of raising money, can include a gift shop, a bistro cafe, conference rooms for educational purposes and club meetings. They also include an amphitheater, which could be a fundraising project for the park, be an excellent venue for music and theatrical performances. Could also be rented for small graduation ceremonies and the like. The children's garden can include a playground area to make the garden more enticing to families and would also be educational for your young gardeners. Picnic area is also important for bringing people to the garden and extending their stay, giving them something to keep them there for a while. A couple of other things that I think would be important to include in this garden would be a river walk to connect it to the existing river walk, and a wedding venue, somewhere really nice and beautiful for a venue for weddings.
Excuse me a minute, our
Yes.
screen's supposed to be working?
It may not be on.
I literally, I'm in computers, I don't know how to turn them on.
Well, let's go to the first conceptual drawing. This layout places the entrance building overlooking the International Water Lily Collection, has a very structured flow, and includes a wide-open great lawn and a bistro for Sunday brunch and a Riverwalk theater. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on these drawings. You have them before you, and I think you can take a look at them and see what they're offering. Concept B is more of a formal European garden, good structured flow with greenhouse feature. This plan would have could have an entrance from either Beauregard or Park Street, making it very effective as far as parking and entrance. Concept C, it's a great layout that includes a river walk, the amphitheater, greenhouse and cafe, and the children's garden with a play area are kind of grouped together and visible from Beauregard, which might be an excellent way to draw people into the park. We hope this board understands this project as a long-term, ever-changing, and living garden that will be an incredible addition to the parks and recreation in San Angelo. With your continued support, we can make the Botanical Garden, anchored by the world-class Water Lily Collection, a reality and a destination of choice in Texas. Again, I want to thank you for your time, and if you have any questions, I'm sure we'll do our best to answer them.
I think at this moment, it's really just kind of to think and talk about the different concepts, what your impressions are of what you've seen. Maybe just give the team some direction as to what you see. The one thing I would like to point out that I want to make sure we don't forget about, and I think of the three concepts, I think C is the one I favored the most, but I want to make sure we don't forget the connection to the river trail, either on Beauregard, on Pecos, or maybe across the river itself. I don't want to forget about that possibility of expanding the Botanic Gardens over there. So even this property in the future, perhaps, if not a golf course, could be part of the Botanic Gardens, which would basically more than double the size, or at least double the size. I'm sorry, come to the mic. I was trying to find the timeline. Which slide do you want?
I just wanted to point out that any of the features that are in any of those drawings, they can be pulled in. So if one of the drawings doesn't include, say, the wedding venue or something, that can be pulled in and added to. None of this is set in stone. This is a work in progress, and we can rearrange or change it to be what we feel like it needs to be. So
That's definitely a good point. We're still just conceiving it right now. So I think this is an important slide to show. It does show where we are today. We've got the first initial concepts about the Botanic Gardens. I'd definitely like to get here, but to do that, it's important that the group obtain the 501c3 status as they've mentioned. Any thoughts?
Thoughts? Questions? I, for one, think it's a great idea. I like all the plans that I saw, although I do agree with Carl. C called out to me the most as I looked through them. But again, I like the wedding thing, and I think that would have to be, that would be neat to be part of C somewhere. But I think it's a good concept, as would be another walking bridge across the river at some point across there to connect the trails and make everything a little more asymmetric through town. But I think you're headed in the right direction. Comments? Questions?
I guess following on what Carl just said, the three versions should show the river walk. Whatever it is at the end, it has to incorporate it. That's what you meant, right?
Right. Well, in terms of connecting and expanding,
Give to any idea or any new phase to incorporate at any time the expansion of the river walk.
into the Botanic Gardens?
In the botanical garden, yes.
Yes. Yeah, I don't want to forget about that possibility, whether it's done initially or later. And, I mean, ideally, I would like to be able to connect here and have this be part of the Botanic Gardens, that piece of property there, maybe even the one right across from Pecos Street, or on the other side of Pecos Street. But that means the golf course wouldn't be there anymore if we did that. But I
Kind of like
just,
the idea on number A is the theater along the river. I think that'd be a beautiful setting there. Whereas if you put it over in this corner on Beauregard, you're gonna have a lot of noise over there if you're trying to have some kind of event there, some traffic noise and that kind of thing. And then I think the river would really play good into the theater along the river.
it definitely has merits. I agree. I think it would. Right. I think this parking down here is probably more problematic. And I'm not sure the European kind of style fits San Angelo. I mean, some elements, sorry, Francis, some elements of it might fit, but it needs, I think in my mind, it needs to be sort of a classy rustic, if there's such a term. Any input? Any thoughts about direction?
Let's get the 501(c). That becomes an important document, I believe, at this point. I mean, whatever kind of support we can give in that process, I'm sure we'd be more than happy to give. I don't exactly know what, but whatever kind of support we can provide towards that, getting that document, that's where we need to be.
That was one of the things I was fixing to say, that we will rely on people to help us with that. We do have good people in place to work on that. We are in the process of preparing the paperwork for that. And I just wanted to say, once we have that 501(c)(3), we would be able to put more of a date on a timeline so that you can see how the progress is expected to go. But obtaining that 501(c)(3, it's a lengthy process. It'll take us a little time. But I appreciate the offer of help, and we will definitely take advantage of that.
If there's endorsement letters or concurrence letters or something that we can put in there to do it, I don't think that there would be a problem from anybody on the board or working with Carl to get such a thing to add to the package as it goes.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that.
So
thank you.
We'll work that way.
Yeah, if you want to, go ahead.
There are actually two different processes you need to do. One, you need to incorporate as a nonprofit corporation. Have you done that already?
We're in the process.
Okay, and then there's a 501(c)(3) designation through the IRS that has to occur. Okay, yes, they got it.
I think that incorporation has to be first, right?
It does.
Ask another question.
Of course.
Any idea of the magnitude of the cost to complete such a very important project?
You know, that does depend. That does depend on what is ultimately developed in terms of buildings and fountains and grounds. And usually we kind of work off of 2 to 10% of the total cost of the project is what we think, we estimate the cost of the maintenance would be. So this would probably be on the higher end. So if it's $3 million worth of development, you're looking at least $300,000 just to maintain the properties, not counting any kind of program expenses.
I just wanted to say, yeah, we're fully aware of how expensive it will be to build a park. We do have some experienced grant writers. We are looking for grants to help us with this process. I feel confident in our group and our abilities to pull together the monies, the grants that will be required. So I just wanted to reinforce the strength of our group.
All at once.
It can definitely be an ongoing process. This is probably realistically at least a 10-year process. I mean, if we had all of the money that we needed to build the park completely and we could get that done next week, then you're still probably looking at 5 to 10 years before the park even looks like we want it to, with the growth that's required for the plants and all of that. So it is an ongoing process. We're not looking at something short-term here, and it can be done in stages. So, and that'll help spread it out, spread the cost out, and allow us time to obtain monies. But, yes, it's going to be a long-term process.
Any other comments, questions?
I think we're on your side.
We need kind of action.
It's, you could make a recommendation if you wanted to. The caption is written that way, but I don't know that we need one.
In that case, unless there's any objection, we'll move on. Further discussion? No? Thank you very much. Please come back and see us if there's anything we can do to help. Next on the issue, we're going to talk about the parking lot at 618. Carl's going to tell us about that one.
I guess just going back to the last item right quick, we could put the concepts on the city's website so the public could go there to at least see them
That would be a
That'd be
good
great.
idea.
on the Parks and Recreation website page. Okay, I'm going to introduce David Knapp. Most of you probably know him. He's the city's project manager, construction manager for different projects. He's here to give a report on the parking lot project at Station 618.
Good afternoon. So, we've been working with the Old Town Conservancy because they've got the idea for the Ruffini Chapel or Ruffini Church and trying to incorporate that within this site. Obviously, our goal was to, now that we've gotten rid of the carrier building, is let's improve on the parking out there. These are preliminary layouts. We've got two options, one with diagonal parking and another one with just straight in parking, 90 degree. The challenge there, obviously we're dealing with seniors. I think in general, most people prefer angled parking anyway. It seems easier to get in and out. But we're also looking at circulation. We have some one-way aisles that inevitably someone's going to go the wrong way and you meet in the middle. So we're still working on that, trying to maximize our quantities, adding more accessible spaces, handicap spaces, maybe more closer to the 618 building, as well as being able to serve the chapel when it is done. Both of these scenarios right now are showing about 37, 38 spaces. And we've got some as close to the building, and it'll help when we do all the landscaping or the hardscaping around the parking. It'll be integral to the hardscape that's there between 618 and 702, the Santa Fe crossing. So you'll have free access between all across the site. We do incorporate some street parking, and sidebar, there's plans on Chadburn to do some developments, beautification along Chadburn. So we might be ahead of that curve for that project. I know they're trying to get a grant, but we will incorporate any of those concepts for landscaping along Chadburn. As we've pulled our parking back from the street, and we've got a planting bed and some other ideas that we can be working on there. Within this parking layout, we'll try and infuse a little bit of green as well, throw in some trees and whatever we can do, low maintenance, but a little green beautification to the parking area.
Where's the chapel to be located? Oh, okay.
That's the building. It's
Technically, I'm reminded that it's a small church. It was apparently the first Presbyterian church. It's the same design, the rectangle is the same design as the original Presbyterian church here in town.
Yeah, this is the original building, and then, of course, to make it modern, they've added on a small restroom and a little kitchenette so they can have it. It's an open space that they can rent out for small events and things like that. I know Brent has passed these two plans around the senior center, and I think overwhelmingly everyone was in favor of the angled parking. So I think that's the direction we'll be heading. So, like I said, this is preliminary, a layout, but we are working with SKG on the civil and site design. They were also helping with getting the utilities from Chadburn Street down to the chapel. So, Gary Donaldson is in charge of the design and architecture of the chapel, church, I should say church, sorry. And so it'll be interesting how when we put this out to bid, part of it will go to Old Town Conservancy, their expenses, and part of it will be the city expenses. So we will be putting that together. Our next step here is, I think, once we finalize a little better plan, we'll take it to the planning department, do a DRC, let them evaluate, do we have enough parking, what of our, if there's any fire issues or any other setback requirements that we need to be aware of. But and then once we're done with that, we can finalize our drawings and put it out for bidding. So hopefully we can get through that this summer.
Questions?
I've got a statement, if you don't mind. I've had a little experience on parking lots and construction, and really not in San Angelo, but a different place. But I don't know if we have grackle problems here in San Angelo, but first thing you do is you plant trees in a parking lot.
Right.
That's aesthetics and everything.
Right.
You attract grackles, and then you've got real problems. You think prairie dogs are problems. Wait till you get some grackles. I would not
familiar with
suggest putting a
grackles.
whole lot of trees in
Right.
the parking lot.
I don't think we'll have that many.
We do have grackles, but they're not as bad as other areas of Texas.
Right.
It could potentially be a problem.
Right. The trees that are around the buildings right now, they have several crepe myrtles, and we would probably go back with a lot of those, and maybe a few shade trees. So deal with the grackles as they come. Any other questions?
Light posts, David, are light posts in there somewhere?
That's something we're going to look at, what kind of lighting is on the building and what kind of lighting is already existing on Chadburn and Avenue B, and if we need to add more. 618 is not as, I don't know, is it used a lot at night? I know certainly the chapel, the church would be more utilized in the evening, so we'll look at that.
Some nights,
Yeah.
definitely Tuesday, Thursdays, and a few other events.
Do you have a projected cost?
I have a budget. I think we were looking at about 80,000
$80,000?
for the parking lot. Now, obviously, we're going to be breaking out costs that are specific to the church, and they will cover those costs, their utility lines and things like that. So just for the parking lot and the landscape beds, we're shooting for 80. I think that's right.
We have an agreement in place with the church for sharing cost.
An agreement with the church on the sharing cost.
Yes, did the Old Town Conservancy, they agreed to pay for the design of that portion of the
Right.
project, and they're paying for the construction on their site.
Is there a lease agreement with them and on the city property? I mean, this is a new property to them.
Yes, this would incorporate new property into their lease, and that still has yet to go to city council.
So we'll probably need to do that before we get too far. Ultimately, we could do this parking lot without them, or we could gain a few more spaces too,
Right.
so.
We'll go back to that's their area of responsibility in terms of helping out with the site design and the construction cost of any curbing and walkways.
Right.
We still have to take that lease amendment to city council, and that's where we're waiting on the survey of that property, that piece of it, to do that.
Okay.
I did want to mention about the grackles. This doesn't show it, but farther up along this way, along Old Town, there's rows of live oak trees, and we have yet to experience grackle problems there. It could happen, but as of yet, not. Just right quick, Brent, if you could tell us about the survey that you did.
Good afternoon, Brent Casey, Recreation Manager. So we've done a survey for the past week and a day, put it in, explained to the seniors about the different diagonals and tried to show them, give them little briefings about the direction of the parking and everything, and explain to them, you know, we get lots of complaints right now because they're parking on the one-way street the wrong way and everything, which is right there. So they're more than ready for the parking lot to be completed, and that's one of the questions I get asked the most from the seniors, but the count came in for the ones that actually voted was 53-11 in favor of the diagonal or angle parking. So obviously something that they want. They were very happy about that area right there and a little drop off, because if it does rain in San Angelo, which is only once a year, but when it does that one time a year, then they'd like to be dropped off close to the door for the ones that are dropped off. So that's something that they were very happy about, and checking that out and seeing it on there and talking to us about it.
Make sure I drop Gloria a note and let her know that the parking lot is progressing.
Oh, yes.
She'll be happy.
Oh, she definitely helped move that along.
Yeah, she fought to get that building tore down a long time.
Every meeting.
Any other questions, comments on this one? I don't think we need to do anything other than encourage and say,
We'll keep moving.
keep moving. Thank you very much, David. Let's have a little bit of a discussion on some more prairie dog information out of Mary Lee. Carl will tell us what he's learned about prairie dogs.
So, yeah, since the last meeting, we've done lots of different research and different aspects of this. Just a quick orientation again, that we're talking about the prairie dog colony at Mary Lee Park, which is on the south side of the Knickerbocker Bridge at Lake Nasworthy. And basically, we have prairie dogs in about this area of the park. You've all seen pictures of prairie dogs, and hopefully you've been out there to take a look. So at the last meeting, we talked about, here's the situation, here's what we might be able to do about it, control the prairie dogs. And our discussion talked about two different things, catching them, trapping them, relocating them, and looking at the possibility of creating a prairie dog town. So since that last meeting, we've gone out and tried to find out what those that have built prairie dog towns before, what their costs were, what their experiences were. And basically we talked to Abilene and to Lubbock. Lubbock's is old, it dates back to the 30s, and Abilene's dates back to the 70s. The mouse was moving. Abilene's dates back to the 70s. Lubbock is looking to build a new one, not too far from the existing one. Their existing one is surrounded by very highly used parkland, ball fields, and a golf course. And the walls that were built didn't go down far enough, and so prairie dogs escape, and they have a constant problem controlling prairie dogs on the parkland. So they're looking at a different location to build this proposed prairie dog town. It's quite large. It's about 3 acres, and their estimated costs are about $450,000, but that is because it's quite a large area. It includes a driveway, parking, lighting, places for the public, and it also has an ornamental fence that goes around it. So I'm not sure we would look at quite that much. So after looking at that, I've kind of revised what we think the cost estimates would be if we built one. It does depend on the size. I'm thinking more like $150,000 to $400,000 for if we built one. Now there's some problems there. Looking at a prairie dog town, we've got to find the best location for it, and this may not be the best location for it at Mary Lee Park, because that park was being looked at under the Gateway study for kind of a resort type setting for resort hotel, commercial opportunities, stores, restaurants, marina. So this Mary Lee Park may not be the best location for Prairie Dog Town. Back up.
Carl, what would happen to the nature,
Happened to what?
the nature place? What would happen to that if they do redevelopment? Have they?
Can't hear, I'm sorry.
The nature study
Oh, the nature.
room, it would be, in the plan, if I remember the plan correctly, it included relocating the nature study
Yes.
over to the other,
Yes.
it's not on this map,
It's
but
farther,
okay.
to
farther
another
back this
portion of the
way.
lake.
Because I remember you saying that the prairie dogs brought people to the nature center, and I like that those two things would go together. I was like, what?
Right. They don't have to go together, but it's true. The prairie dogs do attract visitors, and that's a good thing. So I think we just need to be careful about where we choose to want to put it Prairie Dog Town. One of the issues is it's not yet in the capital improvement plan, so we have to go through that process to get it accepted as a project in the capital improvement plan, and then we have to find the location and the funding for it. So I kind of want to separate the two issues out. Let's look at controlling the prairie dogs, and then think about the possibility of a prairie dog town. So in terms of relocation, I found two possible vendors that could do it, and they do different methods. Now, the vacuum truck, it did exist. It apparently doesn't exist now, at least not in Texas. I heard it didn't injure them, but then I hear reports that that did injure them, and that's from people who used that service. So we're not considering the vacuum truck at this point. So I don't know if we can play this YouTube video, and we don't have to watch all of it. Let's see if it'll run. This is one of the methods.
No, I haven't watched it yet. I'm excited though.
If it doesn't run, I can explain it.
Back in its heyday, Reese Air Force Base was a busy training ground for the best fighter pilots in the country. But after the base closed a few years ago, the only traffic on the old runway these days is an odd-looking rig that looks like some sort of strange barbecue pit on wheels.
What about that one over there, Jack? People think it's a barbecue pit. Sometimes they think it's they want me to fix their driveways. They think it's something having to do with fixing roads or hot tar or a roofing machine.
The old Air Force Base is now an industry and technology center, but the place is crawling with prairie dogs by the thousands. And it's Linda Watson's job, along with her helper Jack Strickland, to catch the burrowing critters and move them. But that's easier said than done.
What we do is help landowners to either get along with the prairie dogs they have, or in extreme cases, we will simply move the prairie dogs to a place where they're wanted and needed. We provide prairie dogs for virtually every zoo in the country, state parks, areas where prairie dogs are welcome. We're the people that get the prairie dogs and take them where they need to go. Alrighty then. Like I said, underground chess. You chase them around underground and you can't see them, and you just have to deduce what you think they're going to do. I'm visually impaired. I've never been able to drive. I have no depth perception. But my biggest gift is that most of what I'm doing is I'm listening for the prairie dog. I'm hearing, as that water goes down, I can hear as a prairie dog comes up, as he's coming up through that foam. Goodness. Goodness. Are you scared? There you go. You know, I've sprained my ankles. I've been bitten pretty badly by the prairie dogs, no problem. I have been struck by lightning during a relocation. My Native American friends said that means I'm living right.
Linda's talents are in big demand these days. Seems even the prairie dogs closer to town are in a collision course with progress.
Lubbock, as with many cities all over the country, is growing in leaps and bounds. Real estate is just springing up. These developments are popping up everywhere, and the wildlife is caught between housing developments and the freeway and the airport and, you know, all of these new things that we appreciate. But the fact of the matter is these prairie dogs are getting trapped in little areas where they can't get away. And so what we have to do is we have to go in and dodge the bulldozers and try to stay out of the way of the contractors and grab these little guys up and get them back where they belong. Come on, baby. Oh, you're in there. Gotcha. Get the soap off this one's eyes. Whoa! If you can get him. Hurry, Jack, hurry. Excellent, excellent. All they want is a place to live where nobody will hurt them.
They have a personality, and they will come to you and they talk to each other and you can hear them. They'll run and get in the hole and then they'll come out and peep out at you.
About 100 miles away, rancher Mary Ann Randall has opened her gates to the prairie dogs, even set aside an entire pasture to protect the curious creatures with the twitching tails.
There you are. You have a lot of them.
Yeah. The best place for a prairie dog is on a ranch where they're wanted, in a burrow that's already dug. Mary Ann Randall approached me and said that she wanted prairie dogs on her ranch, and we started in with this project, and it was wonderfully refreshing to meet someone who was forward-thinking. She understands that they're important to this area, that they used to be here. And, you know, as a result of her allowing the prairie dogs to live here, her ranch is a better place, and because of her, Texas is a better place. We know this prairie dog is healthy, and now we know he's free and he's where he's supposed to be. What you do is you pull back just a little bit till you're sure that they know where they want to go. You know, the minute I let go of that tail, that's the end of my responsibility, and that's a good feeling.
We could end it there if you want to.
Dogs by the dozens, and it takes no time at all before little heads begin
I think
to
you get
pop
the
up
idea.
for a first look at their new home.
So I've talked at length with this lady, and she's explained her process. It's what you've seen. She's been doing it for 35 years. She's relocated, she estimates, 120,000 prairie dogs, and she works basically in our region. A good thing about her is she's made a connection with a rancher who will accept prairie dogs, which I'm finding is an exception because I'm trying to find an alternative locations for us to take the prairie dogs, and it's not easy. So the other vendor I've talked with has done trapping the prairie dogs only one other time in our area, so doesn't have a lot of experience, and he uses traps. He basically secures the traps in the park, and they basically lure the prairie dogs to the trap with bait, and then it transports them somewhere else. Well, this vendor does not have a place to transport them. which is an issue. That means we would have to find a place to relocate them. So these are the two vendors I'm looking at. The first one seems most promising, and she said what she normally does is she comes down for a day. We have to pay her for a day. She has a flat daily fee plus expenses, which include lodging, the soap for the water, meals, hay for the cages, as you saw. She comes for a day. She does trapping for a day so she can assess the situation, see what the ground is like and how they respond. And then she basically gives a quote based on that experience. And she'll come and kind of estimate how many prairie dogs that we have. Now, one question that came up is, what about the babies? Do you drown the babies when they're down there? The answer is she doesn't flood the burrows. She doesn't trap them during the season when they have babies. Fortunately, they only procreate once a year during the spring. By the time she does it, in our case, would be fall. The babies are already adults and they've already established their own colonies, which means we've got to eventually start controlling it or we're going to run out of parkland. So my recommendation, again, is we consider this in two different ways. If we want to consider Prairie Dog Town, let's move forward with that, put it on the CIP, request that it gets on the CIP. And if we do that, we could always repopulate from other prairie dogs, perhaps from this lady's ranch somewhere else, or Abilene as a separate item. And then let's look at how we relocate these prairie dogs here at Mary Lee Park using one of these vendors. And that's the process that I'm following right now. And I'd just like to hear your input, thoughts on the matter.
I like what we just watched. It was very entertaining. Thank you for sharing that. And I agree on separating them so that we can, I think it would be beneficial to have a prairie dog town. I know that's one of the first things I did when I went to visit Abilene was look at theirs. And but I see how we need to put it off, obviously, to think about it, and we need to take care of our prairie dog situation right now.
Is there a problem with controlling the reproduction, the numbers, or does nature just, do they just die off, or can it get overpopulated?
If we
build one.
If you walled it in?
Yeah.
Yeah, we kind of talked about that last time. We think, and that also Kat from the Nature Center basically said it just kind of levels out at some point, where they don't have enough resources to continue to expand. Kind of a zero growth situation.
You have the budget for the relocation in your operations budget?
Well, that is a good question. I do have a possible funding source, and I need to kind of know what the total cost is going to be. But I do have a potential funding source.
We may be able to fund that one-day exploration visit of hers where she would give us an estimate from then on.
Yes, I've got potential funding sources for both, the one day and for the total control. And it depends on what she comes back and says it's going to take. And well, I don't want to quote any figures, but what I think it might be, we have.
So she would do the relocation and we wouldn't have to find a place?
That's correct. That's what she said, and you saw it in the video too. I don't know if it's the same ranch that she takes all of them to, but that's what she told me.
I guess at this stage you have to wait to get the final cost. I'm sure that there are some risk to keep these prairie dogs in place. Is it worth to relocate them if it costs a lot?
Balancing, either leaving them alone or relocating, is that what you're saying?
Keep them where they are. Try to limit somehow the numbers, as you said, zero growth, and do nothing if it's too costly. I mean, there's still a reward cost aspect that needs to be looked at.
Well, so if I'm hearing you right, you keep some prairie dogs there at the park.
I'm not saying to keep them. I'm saying let's wait for what the cost will be.
Oh, okay.
And make sure that the amount will be reasonable in regard of the results.
Good idea.
Okay, I understood. So you want to find out what that cost, we think that cost will be?
Yes, sir, before giving a final recommendation.
Okay. Right.
I think we could probably agree on going ahead with that 1-day service and then coming back and telling us about what she discovered and what she found and what she thinks, and then moving from there.
Will do. Hopefully we'll find out by the August meeting.
Does anybody have a problem with going there? More.
I think it's a good idea. And is she gonna relocate him to this ranch, or does she have a place to relocate him?
That's what I was saying. She told me on the phone that she has
source.
places she takes them, and you saw in the video that one ranch. I don't know if it's the same one or different ones, but they find a new home. That's part of the fee.
Do we need a motion on that?
No.
And I don't think our expectations, would be that all of those prairie dogs are going to be removed out there. I think that would be a high expectation.
She will provide that in her report if she's able to do.
But that'll be something to hear.
100% or not. And she says she can't always get 100%, but she'll make a recommendation about the rest once she's done her work. I have good direction for what I need.
Everybody online? Then let's move on. The next item is a discussion about a proposal to prohibit dogs in playgrounds and recommending matters thereto. And we'll let Carl talk about this.
Again, this caption is written such that you can make a recommendation if you want. This is our first discussion on this, so you might not want to. You might want to just start discussing it and make a recommendation at a following meeting. But this came at a request of one of the city council members. She got a report of a dog that was on a leash in the playground at Unidad Park that was basically making it uncomfortable for this adult's children to be in the playground. And I think you can imagine the situation. To be honest, we've not heard of any injuries or similar reports that I know of, and I don't know if Parks has. Shaking their heads no. I don't know that we've got a widespread concern about this, but I definitely can I definitely can understand the concern about dogs being around on the playground with toddlers around. And the toddlers don't always know the dogs, and the dogs could bite. I think it's a little irresponsible of an adult or anybody to bring a dog into a playground. But this is what's kind of brought us to ask the board to talk about this. So kind of research to see what other cities are doing. Some cities do, in fact, have an ordinance that prohibits dogs and cats, in one case, from playgrounds. But I don't see that it's widespread. I found places like Bel Air and West University, the suburbs in Houston, and other suburbs in Dallas, Mesquite. But I didn't find it widespread that there's such an ordinance. But I wanted to start the discussion to see if y'all had any thoughts or concerns about it. Basically, the thought would be perhaps to create an ordinance that would prohibit dogs in playgrounds, much like we did for smoking in the playgrounds just recently.
It's going to be a bit problematic at Unidad in particular because of the fact that the walking trail goes right through the playground there.
Could be, but
I've seen people walk dogs right through there. I mean, they just stay on the path, but they're still going through the middle of the playground pretty much.
Yeah, at some point, I guess there's not a trail that goes. There's a trail that goes by the pavilion, but it still kind of does the edge of the playground. It actually does cut through the playground. That's a good point.
Though at Unidad, the dog park is right across the road. I mean,
It is, but that's-
literally right across the road is the dog park.
Well, that's
You know.
exactly the example that he gave was
Yeah.
Unidad. So, but I just still know people who walk that trail and walk their dogs right there rather than walk the entire. I mean, there is a better trail right across the street there at the Red Arroyo Trail, but I mean, there's still people who walk right there around that particular
Well,
one.
and people walk their dogs on the river all the time.
Right.
And Kids Kingdom is right down there, and I mean, to me, people go, they take their kids to the park and the dog.
Some people do. A lot of people do. Most people are good about keeping them on a leash.
Yeah,
keeping
they
them,
are.
Keeping them away from the children, but not everybody.
More a question of having the dog on a leash than to have dogs, because like the other members here, I believe that dog is part of the family, and if you take the family out to the park, the dog comes with. As long as you keep the dog on leash, what is the real problem?
Yeah.
I think the concern is if you actually take the dog onto the play set
Playscape on the.
where the kids are running back and forth and
You
might run into
actually,
the dog.
you actually have a sign at Kids Kingdom that prohibits
Right.
pets.
But it's not backed up by ordinance. It's just a rule.
Common sense things.
Yeah, it is. It's one of those common sense things, and the person that complained about it could actually use that, whether it's penalized or not, instead of having a law enforcing something that
But it's difficult to enforce
smoking.
rule versus an ordinance.
Right. I mean, there's no legal authority to enforce it. So if they called the police wouldn't be able to do anything other than say, could you move your dog? And if they didn't, that's probably the end of it.
We could have that rule, it's
Yeah.
just we couldn't enforce it.
Oh, then tell me how many times we've enforced smoking, no smoking.
To be honest, I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, 'cause I don't get the police reports. I don't know if they've got calls or not.
I'm thinking that's kind of low.
Don't know. I can't suspect it's many.
Yeah.
I suppose we could have a rule that prohibits dogs from playgrounds, but it's just a notice.
I feel like the difference between Unidad Park and the other parks is the playground in the other parks is separated, and Unidad Park it's pretty much open. Like if producers, they have the sidewalk around the playground and it's separate, but at Unidad it's all open.
That's like Producers Park too. There's walkways that cut in through the playgrounds.
I mean, dogs are supposed to be on a leash anyway, are they not?
That's correct. By ordinance, yes.
That's, to me, that would take care of it. If things are happening, then that's not being enforced. And I don't see how passing something else would make it different.
This is just one isolated incident, right?
It is a report, a single report. I
Certain
can't
it
say I've heard any before, but the dog was on a leash.
Lady in the back's got her hand up.
Public comment?
My name is Jamie Lee Tabor, and I live here in San Angelo. And you made the point, I was listening to all of you, that recently, this past Saturday, somebody was walking their dog, a couple. They let the dog off the leash. It got a hold to, well, it scattered all the ducks into the water, but it got a hold of a duck. I was minding its own business and sleeping, and grabbed it and attacked it and flopped it around. And there was somebody else that was kind enough to let me use their phone, so I called the police because I love ducks. And but I mean, to what he's trying to say is if you don't pass an ordinance or make it more enforceable, whether any of you like it or not, I walk everywhere in the city, so I witness so many things that I can't run to a phone real quick, or I can't, if somebody else that's also witnessed it, if they don't want to stand up to it, then I don't have any, legal basis is not the word I want. The word I want is not coming out. But these incidences, there we go, do take place, do happen. And like you said, if y'all could get something worked out where you could have the owner, when you walk in the park or you walk in a park that has a playground in it, that you could make sure that they're not allowed to take the dog off the leash because they don't know their behavior of their dog in the first place. And then they want to make all these excuses, oh, how come yeah, maybe I'll let it off, They don't want to just tell the truth.
But they're not supposed to let them off right now, are they?
That's what I mean. A lot of people don't know that, though. A lot of people that walk their dogs in the city parks or playgrounds, they're not aware of the do's and the don'ts. And so I think what Carl was asking, if y'all make it more official that nobody can take a dog off of their leash while they're in a park or the river walkway along the way, these things would not happen if they would be more responsible.
Just to be clear, the animal ordinance does say that you're not allowed to take not only a dog, but also other animals, including potbelly pig, off your property unless it's leashed and under the control of a responsible person. So that law applies in city parks as well as any place else in the city.
And I'm pretty sure our park ordinance signs reference that ordinance about dogs on leash.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we just need to publicize that fact a little better. Maybe get a article in the paper, or one of you guys that write these Sunday articles make a comment about leash laws in town.
Yeah.
There are such things, and they need to be made.
Just a reminder.
Yeah, just
a
a reminder to the public. There are leash laws. It can be reported if you let your dog off the leash.
I like that approach. For a start, I like that approach.
I think that's good. Just do that.
Just remind folks about the ordinance and the need and the courtesy.
We can go with that. I mean, we can. This is a continuing discussion item. We're not necessarily going to end it, but we can stop there for today with this one and say, let's get the word out and remind people that there is such a thing, and be careful with your dogs. And then we can bring this up again at any time if we want to do something more. If there's
do
more
we know what the fine is if you're apprehended?
What the fine is?
The penalty for
it's probably
$200. But then there's court costs that bring those citations way above that.
So we'll start that way.
Yeah, we'll go with that.
More public education.
Let's move along. We want to talk about a proposal to rent the large pavilion out of Kirby Park.
Quick orientation of where Kirby Park is and the pavilion. This is North Bryant. There's the North Walmart, Super Walmart. And here's Kirby Park, basically here. And the pavilion is there marked. It's our largest pavilion in the park system. It's in the central location. It's right next to the playground, horseshoe pits. It's right in the middle of the trails. There's a practice ball field. A ground view. So it's got 2 basketball courts underneath it and restrooms on the other side and an unfitted concession area, which is used often for setting up a place to distribute or sell drinks and food. But it doesn't have any appliances. There's another ground view from I guess that's the south. We do have existing policies and ordinances that we can rent park pavilions. Basically, all of the smaller pavilions that we have in the parks, we do rent for private use for birthday parties for basically 2 hours, 4 hours maximum, $15 an hour. And so this proposal is to rent the Kirby Pavilion and kind of compare it to a little bit to Pecan Creek Pavilion at the lake, which is kind of comparable in size, but Pecan Creek Pavilion is enclosed and it's surrounded by a fenced-in area. So when you rent the pavilion, you get the entire area and access to the lake. And also it kind of compares to the pavilions at the Paseo by Los Panchitos restaurant, which are rented by the Civic Events Division. There's some advantages and disadvantages to doing this. An advantage is we could accommodate some requests to rent this. We do get at least a half a dozen requests a year from either companies that want to have a company event or picnic to, to give me some more examples, family reunions. You think about a half a dozen high school reunions who would want more exclusive use of the pavilion. We do allow use of it associated with a special event, but that is a public use. And any special event that we have has to be open to the public. So we do kind of allow exclusive use for special events, but currently not for private use. Trying to find comparable rentals. So Pecan Creek Pavilion is basically $250 for a day, Monday through Thursday, $350 a day for family use, Friday through Sunday, $400 a day, Monday through Thursday for business use, $500 a day for business use, Friday through Sunday. Paseo pavilions, there's different rates, but $100 a day for non-ticketed use, non-commercial use for 4 hours, $50 for 4 hours. And it goes on, but it kind of gives us an idea what we could rent it for. When we finished building Kirby Park in 2006, we thought about the possibility of renting that pavilion out. We decided not to just because it's in such a central location. It's right next to the playground. We didn't want to tie it up with exclusive use since it is such a large pavilion. But we have had, every year we get requests to rent it. So we thought maybe we should take a step back and think, whether we want to rent this or not. If we do decide to rent it, it's got to go through the process and it get accepted as a fee adopted by City Council and an ordinance. So it wouldn't go into effect until the next budget cycle. I doubt we would want to take it separately because we just a few months ago just got our rental fees adopted into ordinance. So we kind of had to wait a few months to get this one in the mix. So I just wanted to hear your ideas and thoughts about the possibility of renting this out to private use. We could generate, I'm estimating $3,000 to $4,000 a year. It's not a lot, but I suspect that would go up once folks learn that they could rent it. So advantages, we could make some revenue. Disadvantages, it does tie it up for private use. And you would have that public use right next to it because of the playground. Any thoughts?
Is there power there? Is there power there that's accessible? I don't remember this Kirby Park. But could it be added to, if it's not already on there, the list for jump houses and the list of parks that are available for jump houses?
We do allow that.
Do we allow it there?
For special events
Special
only,
events,
right
yes,
now.
For special events. But it's not, we only allow those in the parking lot, right? Oh, okay. Maybe Roger should answer these questions.
I think I remember, if I remember back to the discussion on that But that was a section of town we were missing, I think, from having an available jump house location for people who wanted to rent that. I was just trying to put them both together.
We do allow it for special events, public events. I guess we would have to establish some policy if you would want those allowed during a private rental too.
More comments?
Is the $3,000 or $4,000 per year after cost of maintenance, cleanup, repairs, and the rest?
Yeah, what do we net out of that? Yeah, I'm not sure I could put a good finger on that right now. I mean, that's an existing overhead cost that we have now.
If it can't be an overhead cost because that's just more hours for the crews.
Right, but I think we would definitely want to have a deposit, a cleanup deposit, and maybe put that as a responsibility of the renter to clean up. And we keep a deposit if we have to spend time to clean up.
I don't know. It seems to me a little amount of money for a lot of worries and potential problems. Plus the fact that public would not have access to the facility at that time. I mean, we are public people. We are here to serve the population of San Angelo that can have access to other facilities. So, that's just my opinion.
And to be honest, that's the reason why we hadn't done it to this date. That's kind of the way we felt too. So I'm trying to stay neutral on this. At least I'm trying to consider the possibility, but I kind of feel the same way.
Well, it doesn't seem like we would get much return. And there are other options.
There are other options. But I think the revenue would go up once people know they could rent it. But that means less public use then, if we have more rentals.
But it's still available first come, first serve,
Yes.
correct?
Yes, in terms of use of the pavilion.
If I show up there with 20 people Saturday morning, there's nobody there, and I take it over, and pretty much essentially mine as long as my 20 people are there, right?
Define take it over. What are you doing?
Well, I mean, set up tables, put out a party, do whatever.
Yeah, but we don't.
The only thing that we ask is that you not block the basketball goals for a private party like that.
We do allow folks.
If somebody calls, it's available for first come, first serve, but just not.
It's
to
not
block.
exclusive.
Yeah. So what we're asking is about like a company picnic that wants exclusive use of the pavilion, because they really don't have very many options for something like that. The Pecan Creek Pavilion is booked up a year in advance, and the Paseo doesn't have playgrounds, so that's why they always want to go to Kirby for a company picnic or a family reunion, and they want more than 4 hours. They want to be there all day. I don't know why, because I wouldn't in this heat, but.
Another approach is that we could charge a lot more than this. I mean, if the company wants to rent it, they're going to have the money to do it. You would get a lot of return for one event, and you probably wouldn't get many rentals.
I like that idea. Have it available if someone really wants it, then we can make something.
It's an approach.
Yeah, but even that, we'd have to come up with some sort of paperwork on to toss it in, right?
Yes,
I mean, even if we defined it as special purpose, large groups, or somehow or other may define who we would let it go to, we'd still have to spell that out.
Right, and actually, if we go that route, we would have basically a rental agreement similar that we have for civic events facilities that spells a lot of the details out, and we would probably also have to have signs at the pavilion that show that it's rented out for the day, so the public's put on notice. But it is one approach where you could provide it, but kind of limit its use.
Go with that. Get $1,500 per day.
$1,500.
You won't have too many takers.
We
but
probably would get a few of them.
yeah. Why not? Then we're in business.
Let's. Oh.
Might not have problems getting rid of the trash.
I want to keep my mouth shut.
Any other discussion? Do we want to carry this one along and say, let's?
We have time on it because it's not anything that we could get established this
Yeah, let's slowly work on narrowing it down and figure out what we want to do with it. Maybe we can come back with some more rental ideas, special event ideas and costs, and better define it and come back from there. Everybody, fine?
Do we have any idea what the use of it, how much use there is on public use right now?
Public use, basically every day.
Is it a lot of, I've been
It's
by
one of our
down
more
there.
popular parks.
Yeah.
I mean, during the middle of the day, if it's 110 degrees, it's probably not used much. But a lot of the camps are using it now. The private camps are going there during the day.
Sunday afternoons are real popular.
You saying you've been by there and you haven't seen a lot of use, or?
Yeah, I really hadn't been by there a whole lot. I don't go down 29th Street.
It is one of the more popular parks, especially when the weather's nice. Okay, so we can bring it back at a future date. We've thought it out a little bit more.
Future agenda items. Does anybody have any future agenda items that they would like to have placed on the agenda? One thing to consider while we're talking about future agenda items is, by tradition, the Parks Board generally skips the July meeting, so we won't be meeting again until August, unless everybody wants to not do that this time. But we won't be meeting again until August. I don't know the exact date.
It's on here, August 24th.
August 24th would be our next meeting.
We can always call a meeting if we need to.
Yeah. Problems, discussion with that? No? In that case, I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Thank you very much. Everybody have a nice month of July.